What's good, everybody? Jack back here with Mike. We're going to get into a little Bears talk coming off of another historic loss for the Chicago Bears. No one in NFL history, or at least in the past 40, 50 years, whatever it was, about that stat where you're plus three in the turnover differential. Um, and you have a lead, two possession lead with less than 5 minutes left, over 40 minutes of possession, and you go on to somehow find a way to lose the game. Pitiful, pathetic, you know, an endless amount of adjectives to describe that situation. Just bad, bad, bad all around. We talked about it in our video. I was pretty close. I
Yeah.
said Bears 26-21. Um, if the Bears, just give up that touchdown and then stop them, it's 26-21. Unfortunately, they couldn't get any first downs. Luke Getzey just too predictable on those two first and second down plays. Doesn't spread out the defense at all, just lets them straight up put 10 guys in the box on both plays. Just no creativity. Like, yeah, you're going to run the ball. Of course, you should run the ball. But like, spread them out, make them guess, try to get a couple yards. Don't just tell them, hey, we're doing a halfback dive up the middle. We're not changing our formation. We're just going to do it back to back and let you stuff us at the line. Um, Even beyond that, Field steps up. They throw it on third down, which is the right call. You got to be aggressive. And I don't know what Tyler Scott's doing. I guess I don't. You argue, why is he throwing to Tyler Scott when there's other guys out there that might be better suited? Either way, Justin Fields throws literally a perfect ball. Tyler Scott somehow just stops his route and ends up short, doesn't make the play. The rest is sort of history. Just sucks, man. It's a game the Bears absolutely should have won. They had according to all the analytics, they had a 99% probability to win the game at, points down the stretch, and they just find a way to lose. It sucks. I felt like it really could have been a big, just massive win for that team and sort of give them some momentum to start going in a better direction than it has been for the past couple of years now. And it's just so deflating. You know, Justin Fields looked great. Um, yeah, down the stretch, people will point to the fact that once again he fumbled, but like he had a great game, hell of a game. Um, and like I said, he made that perfect throw to Scott. Scott just that's a play you got to make as a wide receiver in the NFL. And the only thing about Fields is he ran the ball 18 times, which is it's not sustainable. There's a reason Fields has gotten hurt each and every year. Um, but I mean, yeah, it's just same old story. Another terrible loss when you thought they should have been on the right side of one. And I mean, man, we'd be feeling real good sliding into this Thanksgiving week, coming off of what should have been a Bears victory Sunday. What are your thoughts about the game and kind of moving forward here?
Yeah, man. I mean, I echo pretty much everything you said with one disagreement, one agreement to disagree, I think, on one thing. But just I echo all your points. I will say we're so close. If we close out that Denver game and we close out that Lions game, we're 5-6 and like in the hunt, which I know people don't like love to hear, but that's big time growth from a 3-14 team that we were last year, and like not the most competitive 3-14 last year. Like we're kind of in games this year. You take away that Kansas City game, I'd argue we're in almost every other game. Maybe you could argue the Chargers too, but I mean, it sucks to lose that game. Like you said, I think that's a game you win. You start getting some real confidence. It's the team that's leading your division, the team that's kind of staked their claim on this division. One of the top teams in the NFC, arguably. I know you have your thoughts about them. Um, the one thing I disagree with you, Jack, is I think with Fields, and I agree that in a perfect world you have a quarterback that doesn't run the ball a ton. With Fields, I think you have to, man. I think that's his weapon. I like that's if we're trying to win games in the NFL with that guy at quarterback, I think you kind of have to run the ball. And I mean, maybe that means you have to invest in a better backup quarterback because he's probably going to take his lumps. But I think that's how you got to do it. So I don't know, like a slight agree to disagree on that. I think that's the only way he could be sustainably good in the NFL. Um, but I don't know, man. It's a game I would have loved to see them win, see some confidence grow. We're on to this week against Minnesota, and honestly, I'm less optimistic about this week than I was about last week.
Yeah, I mean, your point's well taken about Fields. Obviously, he's a freak athlete. He's a stud. What he does with his legs is nothing short of amazing at times, and it's certainly something you don't want to eliminate from his arsenal by any stretch of the imagination. It's just 18 times is
It's a
such a
lot.
high
It's a lot.
volume. I think if you're, I don't entirely disagree with your sentiment. It's more in my eyes of maybe you have like 5 to 7 designed runs a game, and then maybe he gets out and makes plays, off schedule 3 or 4 times, and then you're looking at that, like,
10.
10
Yeah.
max, maybe keeping it in single digits.
I can agree with
He is
that.
starting to do a better job. Right, and I just think that over the course of time, yes, in a window, you think you get in the playoffs, hell yeah, go
Right.
do your thing, man. We're trying to win a Super Bowl. But over the course of that 17 game season, it's just like I said, there's a reason he's been hurt every
Yeah.
year, and a lot of it has to do with his style of play that is electric, and just some of his flaws of holding it for too long in the pocket and taking some unnecessary hits. Um, but I do think, really quickly, he is to me. He looks a lot more aware of taking hits when he's out in the open field. He's doing a much better job of skating out of bounds. He's doing a much better job of sliding before contact at certain times. I think he is starting to get a better
Yeah.
sense of the coming pressure around him. So I think that that's encouraging, a little bit of that progression we talk about. We're always looking for. And I'm not. He's got 6 games. I think 3 of the last 4. Broncos, great game, great 3 quarters, bad 4th quarter. Redskins, great game. Minnesota, bad game, and he gets hurt. And then Lions, great game. So I'd say 3 out of the last 4, he's starting to stack some consistently, like, improving performances. You're seeing, what could be, and just the fact that, like I said, that they're on top of each other back to back. I think it's moving in a good direction, and I'm encouraged by it. I think there's still a chance that he's the guy, and we have 6 more games to find out. I'm excited to see how it unfolds. Yeah, go ahead.
No, keep going. I got one point when you're done. Before we go on to the next thing.
Yeah, no, I was just gonna say, I think it's like I said, 6 more games to see where it goes. I'm looking forward to see how it plays out down the stretch. And then the only other thing I'll say about reflecting on this past week, Montez Sweat playing 60% of the snaps, and Eberflus's reasoning just being that we platoon our guys, it's what we do. Okay, fine. I guess everyone platoons in a sense, but not your best player. I don't think TJ Watt's playing 60% of snaps. I don't think Miles Garrett or Micah Parsons or Bosa or
Definitely,
whoever you want to name, Chris Jones.
definitely not in a game where the other team only has the ball for 19 minutes. It's one thing if the time of possession is flip flopped and Detroit's got the ball for 40 minutes, and then you only play 60%, and you're like, well, we had to because he would have been on the fucking field for 40 minutes. Okay, that's one thing. But when the Lions only have the ball for 19 and a half minutes or whatever it is, he should be out there for 90% of the snaps.
Yeah, it's insane. You don't trade what's looking to be probably a top 40 pick and give a guy $100 million extension to have him play 60% of the snaps. It's just a weird. I don't know. That doesn't sit well with me. Um, Jalen Johnson. I mean, we talked about it in my keys. Defensive touchdown. He had it in his hands. That's guaranteed pick 6 if he holds on to that ball. Can't miss that one. He missed another interception later in the game. I don't know. You never hear anyone say oh, how many pass breakups did Deion Sanders or Darrell Revis have? It's how many interceptions did they have? Jalen Johnson's just not intercepting the ball. On a positive note, Tyreek Stevenson looked great. We kind of said how good Kyler Gordon looked the week prior. He struggled at times, but Amon-Ra St. Brown's one of the best guys in the league. It's a tough matchup. But Tyreek Stevenson looked great to me. I'm still encouraged by that secondary overall, with the glaring exception of a man who, unfortunately, just does not appear to want to play football, and that's Eddie Jackson. I don't know. You turn on the tape of those last two drives, I, you might as well have 10 guys out there. I don't know what Eddie Jackson's doing. Um, it's just sad to see because he was one of my more favorite players to watch. He was an exciting ball hawking type of guy. Got after it, and it was too much success for it to be like fluky, ball, type of turnover, game changing plays. And I just don't know what's happened to the guy. You know, I really don't. It sucks, but he's got to get the hell out of here for next season.
Yeah, him and Whitehair will be gone next year. That's going to free up even more cap room. Those two guys will be gone. But the one other note, first I agree with all your points. Jalen Johnson, you gotta pick that ball. And then on that corner route that the defense gave up that pretty quick first touchdown in the fourth quarter, um, he got too wide. You got to get deeper. You can't let the guy. You can't let him get deep. It falls on Eddie Jackson too. Don't get me wrong, but Jalen Johnson, he's got to get deep and not quite so wide on his positioning there. The one other note I want to make before we go onto this week, and I know some people might laugh at me for this, but I honestly, truly believe it is criminal that we don't have Poles or Flus or Getsy or somebody sticking up for Justin Fields right now with these late hits that are happening on him. It's every game. It was multiple times that game where he is sliding to protect himself, whatever. And there's guys on Detroit legitimately headhunting for him. There was like one time where the guy in Detroit luckily just missed, but I mean, we're talking like a clear textbook targeting crown of the helmet to crown of the helmet type deal. And these refs just don't throw flags for him. I don't know if it's because he's big and fast and moves like a back. Like, I don't know what it is, but he doesn't get any calls, man. It is crazy to me. And just for like to have your guys back, somebody should be saying something. I don't care what the fuck the fine is. Like that's your guy. You got to say something. It's crazy. That's honestly up there with the lack of late game execution for my frustrations with this coaching staff is that nobody said anything about
Yeah, no, I wouldn't. I don't think that that's crazy to think or believe. Honestly, I mean, I'm sure there was more, as you mentioned, but even just like thinking back to it, I know for sure twice. He had once where Aiden Hutchinson, literally the play's over, and he like body slams from behind, just jumps on top of him. And there was another one on the sideline where, yeah, it's like a pursuit to the sideline. And maybe if, like you said, it's a wide receiver or running back, like typically you're just not going to get those calls. But quarterbacks get those calls at least 80% of the time. It seems like Fields gets them like 20% of the time. And yeah, so that is frustrating. And like you said, it is annoying as a fan to kind of not see anyone really stand up for their guys. Yeah, you would like to see him sort of, go out in the media, say something, call them out, and sort of have their guys back.
it.
Yeah, I totally get that. I'm not so sure if certain coaches are, Sean Payton's going on a rant if Russell Wilson's getting popped like that out of bounds or on late hits. I think there's plenty of guys in the league who are standing up for their players, who are going out of their way to make a point about it. And a lot of times that leads to getting those calls, even though it may seem a little childish, or you're complaining about the refs or making a big deal. But like, I don't know, you got to stand up for your guys, and I think that plays really well in the locker room too. But Here we are, 3-8. Like you mentioned a little bit ago, very easily could be 5-6. And now we're sort of at the point where there's no way you can make the playoffs. I still don't feel the vibes I felt last year, where I was certainly kind of all in on, like, we talked about it last year. Every time we did a Bears video down the stretch of, like, hopefully Fields looks good, but we lose. I'm honestly still not there. I know realistically that's probably where you should be, if you could have a little foresight. But I still think this team needs to learn to win, and I need Fields to continue to progress because you know I say I'm probably like 60 to 70% thinking like yeah, he's not the guy. You don't want to pick up the option slash that, meaning you probably give him a big extension.
Yeah.
But there's good 30, 35%. I think he's got 6 more games, and I think it would be much better long term if he is the guy, because you can build the team, trade back, get even more capital. Um, I don't know. I think if he goes out there, plays well, they win some games. I think that means a brighter future for this team than finishing the season out 3-14, just like we did last year, just because it's good to get a higher pick. I don't know. I just can't. I can't get there again this year. I want to win. Haven't won a division game in forever. I think we've lost 12 or maybe 13 straight now. Got another one coming up this week against the Vikings. Even in our bad years, the Vikings Bears dynamic has always been a competitive one. Games are seemingly always tight. Bears have, gotten a lot of wins against the Purple People Eaters, and hopefully we can do it again this week up in Minnesota. So, with that being said, let's get into your keys for a Bears victory against the Minnesota Vikings on Monday Night Football.
What's the current line? 3.5 point dogs going into this week?
Yeah, they're 3.5 point dogs. Yep, exactly. And I think the over under is sitting at like 43 or 44.
Yeah, I believe it's 43. I mean, without getting too into that, I think the smart play betting wise has got to be the Vikings, right? Bears haven't won. Bears haven't won a division game in how long, and I don't know, just not a very good team. But all right, that being said, I'm gonna come up with some keys if we're gonna get a victory this week. Um, Last time Bears played the Vikings is when Fields got hurt. I believe that's 5 or 6 weeks ago now. Um, Fields gets hurt. Before he gets hurt, isn't playing a very good game. Bajent comes in, turns the ball over, but shows some things. That's the first Bajent experience during regular season. Um, Bears end up losing 19-13 in a game which Bajent was marching late with a chance to win, actually. So, I mean, we were in that game last time, lost 19-13. Um, some things I see in that game and with the Vikings loss last week to Denver is kind of how I came up with some of the things we could do differently slash things we can do to get a victory this week. My first key is going to be offensive line play. Last time when we played the Vikings, our left side of the line consisted of Larry Borum, um, and it consisted of Cody Whitehair at center, I believe. I do think Jenkins, Davis, and Wright all played, if I remember correctly. But we did have Borum and Whitehair. Those guys are out. We now have Braxton Jones back at left tackle, who is definitely, in my opinion, a pretty decent upgrade over Larry Borum, and Lucas Patrick at center, who is not a good center, but Whitehair I think is just cooked. He's done. So I do think he is a little bit of a small upgrade over Cody Whitehair. Uh, Last time out, Justin Fields gave up 4 sacks in his short time played. Beji gave up another sack in his rest of the game. Gave up 5 sacks to the Vikings. We can't get. We can't be doing that. We can't take sacks to fall out of field position. Can't take sacks on early downs to give us second and third and longs. Um, our offensive line is going to have to play better than they did last time around, specifically at the tackles. Daniil Hunter had 2 sacks, I want to say, last time we played them. Um, I know it's kind of a basic key, but if we're going to have any chance offensively in this game this week, we got to score more than 13 points. We need our offensive line to play better than they did last time. specifically at the tackle positions. Offensive line plays the first key of the game.
I think that's a very salient point, honestly, because you not even to mention the fact of what the Vikings defense does. Brian Flores brings the heat, man. He loves to blitz. They're going to be blitzing all day. So that line's going to need to hold up to give Fields any sort of chance to get anything going. Yeah, I think that's a great point to have a solid line play against a team that loves to blitz. And yeah, I like that it's, Feeney was getting some snaps when Lucas Patrick went down last week. It seems like Whitehair has really been flushed out of the rotation. It's kind of funny to see Fields getting after Feeney a couple times, but I love that out of the quarterback. We
Same.
gotta get going. And just the line in general. Yeah, a lot of people are beating up Darnell Wright a little bit because of some of the damage that Aiden Hutchinson caused. But Aiden Hutchinson's a hell of a player, and he was lining up against them all game. And if you go and watch the course of the whole game, I feel like Darnell Wright gets a lot of wins out there too. He's still a rookie, and he's going to have his take his lumps against top pass rushers, but I think there's a lot of positives about Darnell Wright. As much as I still will probably always have a little bit of dread about not just taking Jalen Carter. I was more encouraged than discouraged by his performance against Aiden Hutchinson in that Detroit defensive front last week. Tevin Jenkins continues to be a stud.
Yes.
And like you said about Braxton Jones, I don't love Braxton Jones. I'm not still not like totally bought in. I feel like you probably need a better left tackle, but he's good in the pass block. He really is pretty good in pass protection. He's limited his penalties that were sort of haunting him earlier on in the season before his injury. And yeah, I think with a healthier line, the amount that they're going to be blitzing, they're going to be bringing the funk. You got to be ready to shut it down. So I think that's a great point about needing that offensive line to stand up to give them any sort of chance on the road.
Yeah, I agree with your points on Darnell Wright too. He's faced kind of a gauntlet of pass rushers this year as a rookie, and I think he's battling some injuries as well. I think he's holding up very well considering those two things, and I think he flashes huge potential. I'm pretty excited for the kid long term. Um,
And I mean, and if Santos ever gets caught for all the steroids he's been taking, because like he couldn't kick the ball more than 40 yards, and now he doesn't miss anything. Like, 60 and in, it's guaranteed. But if he ever gets suspended for steroids, Darnell Wright, he might be a good backup kicker. I don't know what he was doing on that safety play, but he's got a boot, baby.
that was huge for the spread for anybody with the Bears last week. All right, my second key of the game. So last week, uh, the Denver Broncos were outgained, I believe, by the Vikings. Kind of lost most aspects of that game, but the one aspect they won, turnovers. Last week, Bears, their defense shows that they do have the ability to take the ball away for maybe the first time in a few years. They get 4 takeaways against the Lions. Like to see them build on it. If they're going to have any chance to beat the Vikings this week, I think they're going to have to get a couple turnovers. Josh Dobbs has been pretty efficient in his few games in a Vikings uniform, but I think that might be a little bit of a facade of what's to come. I think there might be more of a regression to what he probably more truly is, and that's like a low level starting quarterback, probably more of a true backup quarterback. Um, and I think there's a chance that the Bears can continue their streak of forcing some turnovers and making that as somewhat of a difference in the game. I know turnovers. We talk about offense protecting the ball, getting takeaways. But when you're not a great team, you need to win the turnover differential to get some wins. I know it's basic, but that's where I'm going this week. It helped like I said, it helped the Broncos beat the Vikings last week. It helped the Bears being in control and probably what should have been a win last week against Detroit. I'm just saying, first, force some turnovers. I'd like to see at least two. Really would love to see three this week against the Vikings.
Yeah, once again, it's a point well taken. Turnover battle is always huge. especially when you're a team that's either going to win or lose on the margins, the way that the Bears seemingly have these pretty much the whole season, other than, like you said, those two ugly ones with Chiefs and Chargers. Um, yeah, I don't, well, and Packers, I guess, unfortunately. But yeah, they just, it's tough. Like, yeah, I agree wholeheartedly. But then you look at last week, and it's like you get, you're +3 in the turnover differential, and you still lose the game. So what do we need? We need to be like +5. I don't. I mean, how
Well,
many do we need to get? But
my last key
go
is
ahead.
gonna put that emphasis on how we're gonna take advantage of that
All right.
turnover differential.
Yeah, yeah, fair enough. But yeah, no, I'll give a shout out to we mentioned him last week, but you didn't know his name. I think I said his name was Tony White, um, which wasn't totally far off, but his name's Phil Snow is the guy that the Bears brought
Yes,
in
yes,
to help
yes.
out the defense. Phil Snow, Tony White,
That's close.
his alias. But yeah, he ever since he's got there, I think they, like you said, they've sort of started putting themselves in better positions to actually make those turnovers, which are so vital and necessary to success. And hopefully they continue to do so. Josh Dobbs is a sweet story. He seems like quite a quirky character, and teammates seem to love him and all that good stuff. And you always see his highlight plays. You see the banter of like the Creed videos with him, running in the end zone and all that stuff. But last Sunday was the first time I really watched a full Vikings game. They were the Sunday night game against the Broncos. You were on it, so I was locked in to see if we could finish out the week 4-2. But yeah, unfortunate L. But it looked, they just he looks a little like clunky at times in the pocket. I don't know, like happy feet. I obviously he makes a ton of plays. But yeah, he had some throws where it's just like, how did that not get picked? And like he feel like he still makes some questionable decisions. So I feel like what you said about sort of potential to regress towards the mean of what he might truly be, and sort of come down from riding this magic carpet ride he's been on. I think the potential for him to turn the ball over is certainly there. So yeah, I think that's a great point. Keep him rattled, and hopefully you can come out on the positive side of that turnover differential, especially on the road. Going to need to have it to get a W.
Absolutely. And like I said, my last key is going to kind of put a bow on how you win the game with that turnover differential with better offensive line play. It's going to be late game execution. If you look at that last week where the Vikings lose, took a Russell Wilson drive late where they scored a touchdown to win that game. Uh, as you've noted many times, probably your biggest gripe with Justin Fields is he doesn't do it. He doesn't do it late game. Honestly, he doesn't even get started a lot of times. It's like first set of downs and it's over. We got to see it late game. There's going to be an opportunity there. I have a feeling there will be. It might be he needs a touchdown. It might be you only need a field goal. Whatever it might be, there's going to probably be a chance to execute late game. Maybe it's just to close it out. Maybe you got the lead and you just need a couple first downs. We need late game execution if we're going to have better offensive line play. If we're going to win the turnover differential, we're going to have a chance late. And we're going to need our quarterback and coordinators and head coach to give him a chance. We're gonna need our wide receivers to run underneath that deep ball. We're gonna need to execute late game to close out a game and get a win. The Bears haven't proven that they can do it. If they want to get a win, if they want to dance in the locker room afterwards, they're gonna have to execute late game. They can't go into, you know, their turtle shell. They're gonna have to step up, puff their chest out, and flex and get a late game executed drive and win. And I'm gonna say specifically on the offensive side of the ball, um, you know, there's a chance that they could execute on the defensive side of the ball, but that might be as simple as an offensive mistake by the Vikings. I'm saying that the offense is going to have to execute in some fashion late game.
Yeah, honestly, I love that point. I don't really have a ton to add to it. It's as you said, it is my biggest gripe with Fields and his lack of ever getting anything done down the stretch. You got to, and I think once you do it once, that's when you kind of can start to build on it, and it becomes easier and easier going forward. It's frustrating to watch how you said they literally don't get started. They almost very rarely even pick up a first down in those opportunities where like defenses are typically kind of playing a little softer, not really trying to give up the big play. So I don't know, it's tough, and they got to get better at it, especially him in particular. And yeah, last week I would say, of course, the takes the onus for the collapse as far as the late game execution goes, in my opinion. But historically, even with as bad as we've been these past couple years, there's been a good amount of games where that defense does kind of get the stop you need to get the ball back, and then nothing happens on the offensive side. So I think the late game execution is massive. And just going back to the turnovers a little bit, I think just execution on when you get the turnovers is big too. Last week, the first two turnovers they got, they don't do anything with. They get two turnovers and they punt the ball away.
Right.
And the Vikings get one turnover and score a touchdown. So it's like, yeah, you're winning the turnover battle, but you're not necessarily resulting in anything.
Yeah, at
You
the
got to
end of that,
capitalize on those
at the end of that first half, to be losing, I think it was 14-10 after those turnovers and doing nothing with it. It's tough. It's tough.
Right. Yeah. So like you got to execute in those situations as well. But I think yeah, all great points. The one thing we didn't really touch on at all, Justin Jefferson, he's been out for 6 weeks now. I guess he didn't really play the whole second half against the Chiefs either. So I guess like 6.5 weeks. Maybe he's coming back this week. They have a bye next week, so maybe they keep him shut down a little bit. Um, but that'd be an interesting matchup to watch if he plays, to see how Jalen Johnson, if he can bounce back from sort of a down week against the Lions, matched up against who's probably the best wide receiver in the NFL. But yeah, hopefully he's not back because he's a monster out there.
It's a
We'll see if
difference
that
maker for
ends up
sure.
playing any sort of factor. You got any last thoughts or little notes you want to throw in real quick? That maybe a score prediction, anything like that?
No, I mean the one thing I will say after the big letdown against the Broncos, I want to say we came out the next week and beat the brakes off the Commanders, if I remember correctly. So maybe there's a chance that the locker room isn't quite as deflated as the fan base is after that loss against Detroit. Although I wouldn't blame them if they were somewhat deflated. I will give props to one guy that I have given zero props to this year. Um, Jaquan Brisker, as much as I hate him, did say something in the media that like kind of made me happy to hear. Is he took the blame and put it on the defense and said that they let Justin Fields and the offense down by not by letting the Lions win that game last week. So I did like to hear that. So there is maybe 1% self awareness for Jaquan Brisker. So it's more than I thought he had. So that's somewhat good. Thoughts on the game? I mean, overall, I think if you're gonna bet it, I think the smart bet is Vikings minus 3.5. Uh, you know, the Bears they might keep the game close, and then like it could blow open late. Like it could be as simple as the Vikings are up by 3, the Bears got to drive, and there's a scoop and score, there's a pick six, whatever it might be. I think the smart angle is the Vikings betting wise, but you know, kind of like what you said about the tank. I see zero value in tanking this year. This is a team that needs to learn how to win. Um, I personally love Fields, and I think that he has it in him to be the guy. Um, but I can see a world kind of like you alluded to, where they're going to have to give him a huge contract. I could see a world where if they do get that number one pick from Carolina, they move on from him, and I don't know if I'd blame them necessarily. Um, but I think this team's got to learn how to win with or without him, and I just don't think tanking does a damn thing. You're already going to get a really high draft pick with the Panthers, and you're not going to win enough games where you're going to have like a terrible pick with the Bears pick either. Um, I don't know. I'm rooting for a win. I don't know if I see it though.
Yeah, I mean the Vikings are always in those one possession games down the stretch. They're always tight. So I think it will be again this week. I think there'll be some points. I could see it, going over the total. Um, I like you said, that's a great point you made that I hadn't even thought about is about how they did bounce back after sort of blowing that Denver game. So maybe they got it in them. A lot of outside noise. For a fan base that's frustrated with the lack of product we've had for what seems like forever. Um, but maybe in the locker room things are a little bit better than we realize. And they do have that sort of mindset of we got each other's back. Us versus the world type of thing. We'll show you, situation. And maybe they do bounce back. Vikings in a playoff hunt at home. I think it's gonna be tough to win. But like I said last year at the start of the year before becoming so deflated, I think the NFL is a league where if you have the better quarterback, a lot of times you're winning the football game. I think there's no doubt in my mind that Justin Fields is a better quarterback than Josh Dobbs. And I think the Bears can win this game. I like the Bears to go into US Bank Stadium up in Minnesota. Beautiful stadium, by the way. I actually have been there once. It's awesome up there. Went to a Bears Vikings game a few years back. But I think the Bears go up there and get it done. I like the Bears to win this game. Call it 30 to, you know, let's go 30 to 27. I think the Bears get a victory and come out of there.
Wow,
Vikings a little bit
that's way over the
deflated going into
total.
their bye week.
Way over the total.
Yeah.
All right. I'm gonna also predict the Bears victory. Although I said I think the smart play is Vikings against the spread. I'm gonna go ahead and predict a Bears victory, 23-17. That's gonna be my prediction. So yeah. So
All right. That would be under the
it
total.
would be under the total. It would be. But I don't know. I, I like what I saw of the defense the first 3.5 quarters last week. I'm hoping they could, honestly, Jack, and this is the last point I'll make before the end of the video. I do see growth on this team. I know it's baby steps. I know there's still massive letdowns in certain areas at certain times. I'm not blind to it. It's gut wrenching to me at times. It's absolutely gutting. But I do kind of see some overall improvements across the board. We have to remember that we are coming from the worst record in the league last year after a roster being stripped down. I see signs of improvement. Do I think Flus and staff are like the long term answers? No, but I don't hate them, I think, as much as the rest of Chicago does right
Yeah, I mean I disagree in a sense of like I don't see any world in which you bring Eberflus back. I don't see an argument for it. Um, but I don't disagree that two things can be true. It's still an improvement, certainly. And you see some things going in a better direction. But when you're on the fringes like that, it sort of does come down to coaching and execution, which is where some of the failures have been. But yeah, they're moving it in the right direction, and like you said, I agree wholeheartedly. I'm not interested in losing football games. I think you have to win to get better. I think that's just true in sports. You have to win games. There's no way to get better by losing each and every week. So, tanking in a sense, like, yeah, last year was executed perfectly. The Bears got the number one overall pick. Looks like because of the trade with Carolina, they should have the number one overall pick again. And hopefully we don't sniff the top 10 for a long, long time after this. But yeah, Bears the offense goes up to Minnesota. That offensive line protect Fields. Get it moving on the ground. Don't let that pass rush get after them. Took a lot of sacks last time. Took the injury last time. Protect your man back there. Swallow up that blitz. Get the ball out. Make some plays. Turnovers, got to win the turnover battle again. Got to capitalize on top of those turnovers. And then, of course, like you said, maybe my favorite key of the year, that late game execution. We know it's going to be a tight game every time Minnesota plays. It always is. You got to execute down the stretch, whether it's defense, offensive side of the ball. Nothing would make me happier than seeing Justin Fields have a solid all around, even like a decent all around game, and then turn it on to go get that game winning drive. That's the type of progression that I am really dreaming of to see out of this guy, and hopefully we get it this week. Up in Minnesota, Monday night football is always sweet. I love when Bears play in the standalone games. It really lets you focus in on them. You're not keeping tabs on your fantasy team or some other bet you have. You're just watching the Bears completely locked in. I'm excited to see how they look. Hopefully they know it's a Monday night game. They know it's going to have some juice. They got to showcase, go out there, in the spotlight. Everyone's going to be watching them, all their peers, everything else. Go out there, get it done, man. You know, stop this narrative of being a national laughing stock. Stop this narrative of choke jobs and this and that. We got some guys in there, man. We got some dudes on the team these days. It's getting better, and now we just got to start getting it across the line. Any last thoughts?
Oh man, root for Bears W.
All right, let's go get it done, baby. Monday night football. Let's slide to 4-8. Come on, baby. Bears.
Bears.